You're probably watching this video because you're tired of having a flat ass. I literally went from having a flat ass to getting padded shorts accusations because apparently the glute gains are just too good to be true. Let's just say it took me about 3 years to figure out the simple formula, but I'm about to make your life so much easier. I want you to think of growing your glutes like baking a cake. So let's say you want to make a chocolate cake for your birthday. You want to grab the recipe book or just look something up online, and then you want to gather the ingredients in the recipe book. Let's say you want to build a fat ass to shake ass this summer. What you need is the recipe book, that's your exercises, and the ingredients, that's the food you're eating. So there's the training and the nutrition part of it. You'd be surprised, but the training is actually the easier part. So let's start with that, and then we'll be explaining the nutrition part. Your ass is a muscle. The reason why your ass is small is because you don't have enough muscle or you just don't have enough fat on it. It depends on what type of ass you want. Do you want the brick hard ass or do you want the jiggly fatty ass? If you cannot afford a BBL, we're going to talk about how to build muscle. So building muscle is really not that hard. When you see gym bros go to the gym, what are they doing?
Oh, it's a deep burn. Oh.
They're doing like 3-4 sets of each exercise, targeting that specific muscle to grow it. Same thing applies to your glutes. Your glutes are not anything special, by the way. You need to do something called hypertrophy training. To make it more simple, it just means muscle growth. So your training should be targeted or specific to growing your glute muscle. So for hypertrophy training, you need something called resistance training or weightlifting. So really what happens is, think of it this way, your body's really lazy and building muscle is hard. It's not easy. It requires energy. It's called an anabolic process. Anabolic just means building. That means you have to put energy, put ingredients and building blocks into it to grow some muscle. So when you go into the gym, you need to do something that is actually hard and it feels challenging to force your body to build muscle. So when you go into the gym and do your exercises, you really have to push yourself and really push yourself to failure to really stimulate muscle hypertrophy and force your muscles to adapt and grow. That is why doing things like booty band kicks might not be challenging enough to actually grow your glutes. This is what my ass looked like when I used to do my donkey kicks and fire hydrants. Like, it's really good for glute activation, don't get me wrong, but it gets to a point where it is not enough resistance to build the fat ass you're looking for. The real game changer for me is doing the actual exercises that are going to lead to the most glute growth, and they're also backed by science. There's 3 things you kind of have to think about. 1 is the number of days a week you're going to be training your glutes. 2 is what exercises are you doing, and 3 is the volume and intensity. When it comes to the frequency, it really depends on the volume and intensity. Volume and intensity just means the total number of sets you're doing per week to grow that muscle. Also depends on how many exercises and how many sets you need personally to really stimulate growth, which is kind of different. But I'm gonna give you like a framework or an outline that you can use for yourself to figure out what works best for you. Usually, if you want to grow your glutes, it's recommended to train your glutes 2 to 3 times a week. If you're a beginner, just start with just 2 days a week. So when it comes to picking your exercises, there's 2 types of exercises. We have the shortened position and the lengthened position. Think of the shortened position as an exercise that's going to squeeze your muscle together. Lengthen is kind of stretching the muscle out. To keep things very, very simple, for each muscle you want to grow, you should be doing at least 2 to 4 exercises. If there's 4 exercises you should be doing to grow your glutes, it's hip thrusts, Romanian deadlifts, some type of lunge or unilateral exercise, and glute hyperextension. Hip thrust is a really good example of a shortened position exercise. That means it's really going to train your glutes in that squeeze position when you squeeze at the top of the movement. Romanian deadlift is a really good example of lengthened position, because what's happening is as you're doing the Romanian deadlift, your muscles are really stretching out. That's the lengthened position. And then we have the unilateral exercise like step-ups, Bulgarians, or lunge. That is another example of lengthened position. And then you can finish off with a shortened position exercise like glute hyperextensions. This is really going to tucker your upper glute. Those 4 exercises can be an example of what your glute day 1 can look like. So you have 2 shortened position and 2 lengthened position exercises, and you have 4 exercises total. When it comes to the number of sets, if you're a beginner, I would recommend starting with maybe like 2 to 3 sets, and then as you progress and like take note of your recovery and how your body's feeling, you can up it to 3-4 sets each exercise. One more thing people forget about is that you don't want to have uneven booty cheeks. So you also want to make sure you have unilateral exercise and really fix the imbalances you have. If you have any weaknesses or one muscle is bigger than the other, it happens completely normal, especially if you have one dominant side. So for me, my left side is weaker than the right. So my second glute day is focused on unilateral exercise to prevent imbalances. So instead of just doing normal hip thrusts, I would do like a single leg hip thrust or a B stance hip thrust. Instead of doing a normal Romanian deadlift, I do like a B stance deadlift. I'm going to be training each side in that same exercise and position, just doing one side at a time to make sure all my sides are equal. Instead of doing the glute hyperextensions, what I would do is a glute medius kickback on my second day. This actually targets the side of your glutes in a single leg exercise. Again, same thing if you're a beginner, start with like 2 to 3 sets, and then you can up it to 3-4 sets as you progress every week and take note of how your body is feeling. Rep range is anywhere between 6 to 20 reps to make things more efficient or practical, because let's be for real, you don't want to be doing 20 reps for every single exercise. I would just stick to the 8 to 15 rep range. So the way this works is the weight you pick, you should be able to do 8 to 15 reps, where the 15th rep or the last few reps are very challenging. Keep in mind, if you want to build muscle, you need to push yourself in the gym. You need to force your body to build more ass. Like if you're not able to lift that weight, it's going to be like, oh shit, I can't lift it. I need to build more ass. You need to stop switching your exercises every week. You need to apply something called progressive overload. That means you want to increase your weight and reps. So let's say you're training in that 8 to 15 rep range. You start with maybe like 40 pounds for your hip thrust. You reach 15 reps with the 40 pounds. Now it's time to up the weight again. Maybe you go to 50 pounds, but then when you did 50 pounds, you went up to 10 reps. So now you want to work your way up with that 50-pound dumbbell to 15 reps again. And that's how you apply progressive overload, by increasing your reps and weight every single week. So that's why it's really important to stay consistent with those exercises so you can actually adapt, recover, and improve every week. Don't expect to see your booty grow in just a week or two. Like, yes, it will look more plump just from doing those exercises, but building muscle takes time. So you need to be super consistent and patient. Now, that was the training part of it. Let's talk about the nutrition, because that's what most people struggle with. Let's be for real. Showing up to the gym is the easy part. I used to think that working out was the hard part. It's not. It's the nutrition that stops most people from seeing the results you're looking for. Let's say you got your chocolate cake recipe. You can't bake a cake out of thin air. You still need the ingredients. The same thing applies to growing your glutes. You can have the exact formula, the exercise you need to be doing every week, but you can't grow your ass out of thin air if you don't have the ingredients. What do I mean by ingredients? We're going to be talking calories and protein. So like I said, building muscle is an anabolic process. That means you want to put energy into it. It takes up energy because you're literally building new muscle cells. Like that, it's not just going to come out of thin air. You need to alchemize some type of energy that comes from food and calories. Also, muscle is made up of protein. The building blocks is amino acids. You need to get that protein from food. If you want to grow a fat ass, you need to stop eating like a toddler, okay? So when I say you need to be eating enough, you should be aiming for at least your maintenance calories or a slight caloric surplus, or you can do like a really aggressive caloric surplus. What do I mean by maintenance calories? So your body's like a machine. You need calories in, calories out to function. Maintenance calories was when you eat the same amount of calories you're burning, so you're maintaining your weight. If you eat that amount of calories, it'll be just enough to have enough energy to potentially build muscle. Just keep in mind that for optimal glute growth or muscle growth, it is better to be in a caloric surplus because it gives you that extra energy to recover and build muscle. You don't need to start with a caloric surplus, but I would recommend doing that if you struggle with building your glutes at maintenance calories. For me personally, I've seen the most growth not at maintenance. I've seen it when I went into a caloric surplus. The only downside with being in a caloric surplus is you should expect some fat gain just because that extra calories and energy does get stored as fat. But at the same time, if I show you the transformation of from a caloric deficit to a caloric surplus, you're going to be like, okay, maybe it's worth it. Once you're done your caloric surplus after your bulk and eating more calories, you can just do a cut so you can lose the fat that you've gained on that bulk and maintain all that muscle you've been building. If you want to figure out your maintenance or caloric surplus, there's calories you can use online. Just keep in mind these calories are only an estimate. You're going to have to track your progress to see if these calories are actually working. So they say most people maintain at 2,000 calories. That really depends on your sex, genetics, and everything like that. So men do burn more calories than women. Women also depends on your height and so many other things like age, how much muscle mass you have on you. So your maintenance is going to be different than anyone else. It's going to be different than mine. When you go to use these online calculators, please only use it as an estimate. Just be mindful of your progress every week. Take some progress pictures and measurements to make sure that you're on the right track. When you're at maintenance, you shouldn't be gaining any fat, but you can still build muscle without gaining fat. If you're in a caloric surplus, you will be building muscle, but you should be noticing some fat gain, and that's how you know you're in a caloric surplus. Now, let's talk about protein. So like I said, your muscle is made up of protein, and you need to provide the building blocks through eating protein. So when it comes to protein, you should be aiming for at least 0.7 to 1 gram protein per per pound of body weight. Let's do an example here. Let's say I weigh 150 pounds. So you want to grab your weight, multiply it by 0.7. That's your lower end. And then times 1, that's your upper end. You don't have to be scared of eating more than 1 gram protein per pound of body weight. It can be unnecessary, but it's not going to kill you. It is safe to do so. Now, the number part of it is the easy part, but then figuring out what to eat to get that much protein can be really hard. So all I'm going to say is take it easy, take it slow. Maybe start with the lower end of your protein goal and then work your way up. But these are my main staples to help me get my protein in. So chicken breast, lean proteins like steak, eggs, egg whites, tuna, cottage cheese, non-fat Greek yogurt. Protein powder, it definitely helps. You don't need it. It's not necessary. However, if you struggle with hitting your protein with natural sources, protein powder can be a game changer because one serving usually ranges between 24 to 30 grams protein per scoop. You do not need to take it right after the workout. You can still build muscle without even using any supplements or protein powder, but it does really help. Speaking of supplements, if you do want to actually maximize your potential to build muscle, there's one supplement you should be taking. That's creatine. Creatine is the most studied supplement out there to help with muscle growth. The mechanism behind it is it simply increases the creatine levels in your muscle, and creatine plays a really big role when it comes to muscle growth, performance, and giving you more energy to perform better in the gym and recover faster. If you guys need more help, I do have a full free booty guide explaining the nutrition and the training part of how to grow your glutes. If you need more personalized help, I also offer online coaching where I can give you a personalized program, nutrition, check-ins, and everything to make sure you're on the right track. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.